The Galactic Council's chamber buzzed with the uneasy hum of alien voices, a chorus of whispers in dozens of languages filling the vast hall. Representatives of countless species, tall, spindly creatures with crystalline skin, quadrupeds covered in bioluminescent fur, amorphous beings suspended in anti-gravity pods, all convened beneath the glittering dome of the Council's central assembly. Normally, the grandeur of the hall, with its vaulted ceilings and radiant star map projections, inspired awe and unity. But today, the mood was anything but harmonious. Tension hung thick in the air, an invisible force tightening around the delegates. The reason for their anxiety was clear: humanity. In the 2,000 years since the Council's founding, no species had ever caused such widespread consternation in so short a time. 50 years ago, humanity had entered this chamber for the first time, the galaxy's youngest member. They had arrived as latecomers, emerging from their isolated spiral of the Milky Way, but they had made their presence impossible to ignore. At first, the humans had been seen as curious oddities, fragile creatures from a small blue world with disproportionate ambition. But their meteoric rise had unsettled the balance of power. Within decades, they had outpaced most species in technological innovation, their advancements in energy manipulation, artificial intelligence, and adaptive warfare leaving the older civilizations scrambling to catch up. While other species followed galactic norms, humans charted their own course, often ignoring protocols and disregarding traditions that others held sacred. Where aliens saw unpredictability, humans saw opportunity. Now, that unpredictability had transformed into something far more threatening. A week ago, the Council had summoned humanity to mediate a growing border dispute involving the Krallen and the Zentari, two powerful species vying for control over the Tarsus system. Rich in rare minerals and uniquely positioned for strategic defense, the system was a prize neither side would relinquish easily. For years, humanity had been a neutral intermediary, mediating such disputes with surprising diplomacy. But this time, their response shocked everyone. The humans had arrived, not with their usual measured speeches or carefully crafted proposals, but with a single, resolute statement. No more compromises. The words were delivered without explanation, without room for debate. And then they left, leaving the chamber stunned into silence. The message was clear: humanity would no longer engage in diplomacy. The fallout was immediate and chaotic. Panic rippled through the Council as speculation ran wild. What did humanity intend to do? Had they grown tired of negotiation, or was this a prelude to something far worse? The Council's unity, already fragile, began to fracture. The Krallen, who had previously dismissed humanity as an upstart race, now argued for immediate concessions, fearing that human military power might turn the Tarsus system into a war zone. The Zentari, on the other hand, called for preemptive action, accusing the humans of preparing for an expansionist campaign. Among the smaller civilizations, fear and confusion reigned. Many had looked to humanity as a stabilizing force, a rare power willing to stand against the dominance of ancient empires. But now, humanity's silence felt ominous. Their refusal to negotiate was unlike anything the Council had encountered before. Some interpreted it as a sign of arrogance, others as desperation. But beneath all the theories, one terrifying possibility loomed: perhaps humanity had grown so powerful that they no longer needed the Council at all. The Council chambers, once a beacon of unity, now felt like a battleground. Accusations flew, alliances wavered, and the unspoken fear that had been building for years finally came to the surface. If humanity had truly abandoned diplomacy, what did that mean for the future of the galaxy? Would the humans resort to force to protect their interests? Would their unpredictable nature lead to an arms race the Council could not hope to control? As the debates raged, the Council could not shake the feeling that they were standing at the edge of a precipice. Humanity's refusal to negotiate was not just a rejection of diplomacy, it was a challenge to the very foundations of galactic order. The uneasy hum of voices grew louder, a rising tide of panic echoing through the chamber. And far beyond the Council's reach, in the shadows of the galaxy, humanity stood silent, their intentions shrouded in mystery. The Tarsus system dispute was just the latest in a series of provocations. For decades, humanity had honored the treaties it signed upon joining the Galactic Council, respecting borders and abiding by regulations, even when doing so put them at a disadvantage. But their goodwill was met with repeated violations. Krallan mining vessels had quietly crossed into human-controlled systems, stripping asteroids of vital resources. Centauri warships, under the pretense of routine patrols, had ventured dangerously close to human colonies, their actions skirting outright hostility, but sending a clear message. These incursions were deliberate, testing humanity's patience and resolve. At first, humans responded as expected, through diplomacy. They lodged formal complaints, proposed mediated solutions, and worked tirelessly to de-escalate tensions. But every concession was seen as an invitation for further exploitation. Alien powers, long accustomed to humanity's conciliatory tone, began to view them as weak. This perception emboldened the aggressors, and the incursions grew bolder. Treaties were ignored, promises broken, and humanity's warnings dismissed with thinly veiled disdain. The Galactic Council, unwilling to antagonize its older and more powerful members, turned a blind eye. For humanity, the situation became untenable. Resources vital to their survival were being siphoned away, and the safety of their colonies was increasingly under threat. The Council's inaction confirmed what many on Earth had long suspected: humanity could not rely on anyone else to protect their interests. The final straw came when a Krallan fleet blockaded the outskirts of a human-controlled system, claiming they had historical rights to the region. Negotiations with the Council dragged on for months, achieving nothing but empty assurances. By the time the blockade was lifted, the damage was done. Trade routes had been severed, colonies left vulnerable, and thousands of lives disrupted. In the wake of this humiliation, Earth's leaders convened in secret. The meeting brought together the best minds humanity had to offer: military strategists, scientists, diplomats, and even historians. They analyzed every incident, every slight, and every failure of diplomacy. The conclusion was unanimous: humanity's approach had to change. Compromise had only emboldened their adversaries. Appeasement had left them vulnerable. If humanity was to survive in a galaxy that respected only strength, they would have to prove they had it in abundance. The shift was swift and absolute. Diplomatic channels were maintained outwardly, but behind the scenes, humanity began retooling its priorities. Earth's brightest engineers were tasked with developing cutting-edge technologies that would render their defenses impenetrable. Massive orbital shipyards sprang into action, constructing stealth fleets equipped with experimental weapons systems. Entire planets were fortified, their atmospheres shielded by energy grids capable of repelling even the most advanced alien attacks. Colonies on the fringes of human space were quietly evacuated and consolidated, minimizing potential vulnerabilities. Most importantly, humanity did all of this without fanfare. The Council and its member species remained largely unaware of the scale of humanity's preparations. Misinformation was deliberately seeded, creating the illusion that humanity's progress had stalled. Meanwhile, their true capabilities remained hidden, a secret known only to those within the inner circle. Every step of the plan was calculated to send a single, unmistakable message when the time came: humanity was not to be trifled with. This transformation was not without its moral weight. The decision to abandon negotiation was met with unease by many within humanity's ranks. For centuries, Earth had championed ideals of cooperation and peaceful coexistence. Yet history offered a sobering reminder: too often, those who sought peace at any cost became victims of those who did not. From ancient empires on Earth to colonial powers and world wars, the lesson was clear: compromise in the face of aggression invited exploitation. The parallels between Earth's past and the galaxy's present were impossible to ignore. Humanity's resolve was further steeled by the memories of those who had suffered because of their faith in diplomacy. The blockade of the system, the lost trade routes, the colonies left defenseless, they became symbols of what humanity could no longer allow. The choice to refuse negotiation was not made lightly. It was a painful but necessary decision, born not of malice but of survival. Humanity would not initiate conflict, but they would ensure that no one dared to take from them again. The refusal to negotiate, when it came, was not an act of defiance for its own sake. It was a declaration of independence, a statement that humanity would no longer play by rules designed to keep them subordinate. They would not be a convenient scapegoat, or a pliable newcomer. They had earned their place in the galaxy, and they intended to keep it, on their own terms. By the time the Council convened to address the Tarsus system dispute, humanity's leaders had already decided on their response. No more compromises was not a threat. It was a promise. The emergency session called by the Galactic Council began in disarray and spiraled further into chaos as hours passed. The Grand Chamber, once a symbol of unity, now resembled a war zone of conflicting agendas and rising tempers. Humanity's refusal to negotiate had sent shockwaves through the Council, disrupting centuries of carefully maintained balance. Representatives argued fiercely, their voices overlapping, their languages mixing into an unintelligible cacophony. Fear and uncertainty ruled the room. For the first time in living memory, the Council was truly divided. The older, more cautious civilizations advocated for immediate appeasement. They proposed offering humanity reparations or expanded territory to prevent any escalation. "We must show them respect," one elder representative argued. "Their anger is justified. If we demonstrate good faith, they may yet return to the table." But this sentiment was met with open hostility by other factions. The more militant species, many of whom had clashed with humanity directly or indirectly, pushed for preemptive measures. "Appeasement will embolden them," shouted a Zentari warlord. "They've grown arrogant, and now they think they can dictate terms to the galaxy. We must act before they consolidate their power." The debate quickly devolved into accusations and insults. Representatives who once stood as allies found themselves on opposite sides of the argument. Smaller civilizations, caught in the middle, looked on in desperation, fearing they would be the ones crushed if tensions escalated further. What became painfully clear was that the Council was no longer capable of decisive action. Amidst the chaos, reports began to trickle in, further stoking the flames of fear. Unverified intelligence suggested that humanity had been mobilizing on an unprecedented scale. There were rumors of orbital shipyards producing fleets far larger than anything previously known, capable of disappearing from sensors without a trace. Fringe colonies whispered of experimental weapons tests, with entire sections of space reportedly left scarred by energy bursts beyond the Council's comprehension. An elite Krallan intelligence operative had been dispatched to infiltrate human-controlled space to confirm these rumors. Equipped with the most advanced stealth technology available to the Council, the operative vanished without a trace. Days later, a cryptic message was transmitted back. No words, only static interspersed with brief, indecipherable bursts of human language. The mission was declared a failure, and the operative was presumed dead. The Council's paranoia deepened. This growing uncertainty began to unearth fractures that had long existed beneath the surface. Old rivalries, once tempered by the necessity of cooperation, resurfaced with renewed vigor. The Zentari accused the Krallan of weakness for advocating appeasement, while the Krallan dismissed the Zentari as reckless warmongers who would drag the entire galaxy into ruin. Smaller factions, feeling increasingly vulnerable, began holding secret meetings, weighing whether allying with humanity might offer better protection than relying on the Council. The Council chamber itself became a theater of shifting allegiances. Representatives who had once cooperated seamlessly now eyed each other with suspicion. The larger empires began quietly stockpiling resources and bolstering their defenses, not just against humanity but also against one another. The fragile web of trust that had held the Council together for millennia was rapidly unraveling. For the smaller civilizations, the situation was especially dire. Lacking the resources to defend themselves against a potential conflict, they saw only two options: remain neutral and risk being collateral damage, or approach humanity in secret. Word spread of emissaries discreetly reaching out to human representatives, hoping to secure alliances. Humanity's silence, rather than alienating them, was drawing these smaller powers closer. To them, humanity represented a force that might finally challenge the old hierarchies and offer protection against the larger, more domineering empires. As the session dragged on, it became evident that no consensus would be reached. The Council, once the galaxy's most respected institution, was paralyzed by fear, mistrust, and self-interest. Some representatives left in frustration, others stayed only to argue, but no one could deny the truth: the Council was crumbling under the weight of its own indecision. In the background of all this, humanity remained silent. Their refusal to negotiate had sent a ripple through the galaxy, and the Council's fractured response had amplified it into a tidal wave. By doing nothing more than standing firm, humanity had exposed the vulnerabilities of a system that had long considered itself unshakable. The panic in the Council chamber was no longer just about humanity's actions, it was about what their silence revealed. A galaxy once united in purpose now stood on the brink of collapse, and all the while, humanity watched and waited. The galaxy held its breath as humanity broke its silence. For months, their refusal to negotiate had sparked panic and speculation, but now, in a single decisive moment, they shattered the uncertainty. Without warning, Earth broadcast a message across the galactic network, reaching every corner of the known universe. The screen faded to the image of a human ambassador, standing tall and composed in a simple yet elegant uniform. Behind them loomed the backdrop of Earth, its surface shimmering with a network of planetary defense grids. Above the planet, an awe-inspiring sight unfolded: colossal fleets of human warships, their sleek, angular designs gleaming under the light of distant stars. As the camera panned, it became clear that these vessels weren't just numerous. They were advanced beyond anything the Council had imagined. Each ship radiated power, their weapons systems humming with barely restrained energy. The ambassador began to speak, their tone calm yet resolute. To the Galactic Council and all member civilizations, this is a message from the people of Earth. For decades, we have honored our agreements, upheld the treaties we signed, and worked tirelessly to foster peace among the stars. In return, we have faced incursions into our space, theft of our resources, and threats to the safety of our people. No more. The ambassador's voice carried the weight of centuries of human struggle, tempered by a determination that brooked no argument. We will no longer tolerate violations of our sovereignty. Our resources are ours, earned through the sweat and sacrifice of our people. Our colonies will not suffer for the greed of others. And while we seek no war, we will defend what is ours with all the strength at our disposal. As the speech continued, the broadcast shifted to visuals of Earth's formidable defenses. Planetary shields flickered into view, domes of energy capable of withstanding even the most advanced weapons. Orbital platforms bristling with cannons and missile arrays hovered above key positions, ready to engage any threat. The camera then transitioned to humanity's fleets, their formation vast and precise, each ship a testament to human ingenuity. Experimental vessels, sleek and ominous, hinted at capabilities far beyond the Council's understanding. The final words of the address carried a tone of finality. Humanity does not seek conflict. We desire peace, but it must be peace built on mutual respect. We have shown restraint, and we have sought dialogue. Yet the actions of others have forced us to take a stand. Let this be a warning: aggression will be met with strength. But to those who respect our sovereignty, we offer cooperation and friendship. The choice is yours. The message reverberated across the galaxy. On Council-controlled worlds, the broadcast left an indelible impression. Those who had underestimated humanity were now forced to confront the undeniable reality of their capabilities. The aggressive factions that had called for preemptive action found their arguments dismantled by the sheer scale of humanity's display. War with a species capable of such technological brilliance was no longer an option. The risks far outweighed any potential reward. Even among humanity's staunchest critics, there was an unspoken recognition of the balance they had struck. This was not the act of a warmongering race eager for conquest. Humanity had shown their strength without firing a single shot, demonstrating that their desire for peace was not a weakness but a principle they were willing to defend. They had drawn a line in the sand, and no one dared to cross it. As the Council deliberated on their next steps, a surprising shift began to take shape. Smaller civilizations, long ignored or marginalized by the galaxy's dominant powers, saw humanity's stance as a beacon of hope. These species, often forced into subservience by the Council's larger factions, were inspired by Earth's defiance. Humanity had achieved what they had always dreamed of, a position of strength that demanded respect without succumbing to the destructive cycle of aggression. One by one, these civilizations reached out to humanity. Some sought protection, while others offered to share resources and technology in exchange for inclusion in what they began calling the Coalition of Equals. Humanity welcomed them with open arms, recognizing the potential for a new alliance founded on mutual respect and shared advancement. This coalition, though still in its infancy, began to shift the balance of power in the galaxy. The Galactic Council, meanwhile, found itself in an unprecedented position. For centuries, it had been the ultimate authority, dictating the terms of interstellar relations. But now, its influence was waning. Humanity's coalition posed no direct threat but represented an alternative to the Council's dominance, a model of cooperation that appealed to those who had long been overlooked. For the first time, the Council was forced to adapt or risk becoming irrelevant. In the weeks following humanity's broadcast, tensions began to ease. The aggressive factions, cowed by the display of power, scaled back their military posturing. The Kralin and Zentari withdrew their fleets from the Tarsus system, unwilling to test humanity's resolve. Trade routes reopened, and diplomatic channels were cautiously re-established. While distrust lingered, the galaxy had avoided the brink of war. Humanity had achieved their goals without aggression, relying instead on their brilliance, restraint, and unyielding resolve. They had shown the galaxy that peace could be maintained not through fear but through respect. And as their coalition grew, humanity's vision of a more just and equitable galaxy began to take shape, a vision that, for the first time, seemed within reach. The galactic crisis came to an uneasy resolution. After weeks of tense deliberations, the Council finally conceded to humanity's demands. The new treaties were signed, redrawing borders to favor humanity and other smaller civilizations. Resources that had been disputed for decades were formally acknowledged as belonging to humanity. The Council, though unwilling to admit defeat outright, had no choice but to acquiesce. Humanity's display of strength had reshaped the balance of power, and the galaxy could no longer afford to dismiss them. But this wasn't just a victory for humanity. For the smaller civilizations that had lived in the shadow of the Council's dominant powers, this was a turning point. The coalition of equals, forged in the aftermath of humanity's defiance, continued to grow. Dozens of species, from resource-poor colonies to isolated planets once overlooked by the Council, joined the alliance. United by mutual respect and a shared vision of sovereignty, the coalition represented a new order in galactic politics, one that offered hope to those who had long been forgotten. Within the Council chambers, a sense of quiet unease lingered. The older powers, once used to dictating terms, now found themselves navigating a galaxy that no longer revolved around them. In private, alien representatives spoke with a mix of grudging respect and lingering fear. The humans, one elder Kralin diplomat remarked, are unlike any species we have ever encountered. Their strength lies not only in their weapons but in their unyielding resolve. They do not ask for dominance, but they will not accept subjugation. This balance is unsettling. Even among humanity's critics, there was acknowledgement that they had introduced a new model of diplomacy, one that relied not on submission or appeasement but on equality and mutual respect. Their actions had challenged the very foundations of the Council's power structure. For the first time, species that had once been sidelined by galactic politics had a voice, and they had humanity to thank for it. Aboard one of Earth's massive orbital stations, the human ambassador reflected on the events of the past months. The crisis had tested humanity in ways few had anticipated, forcing them to confront their own values as well as their place in the galaxy. We have shown them who we are, the ambassador mused, gazing out at the stars. Now we must prove that strength can coexist with compassion, and that peace is worth fighting for. But even as humanity's coalition solidified, whispers of new threats began to emerge. In the far reaches of space, beyond the Council's territories, unexplored regions stirred with strange activity. Ancient ruins, long dormant, began emitting signals no one could decipher. Some feared that humanity's rise had awakened forces better left undisturbed, remnants of an ancient enemy that had once brought the galaxy to the brink of annihilation. Within the coalition itself, cracks were beginning to show. Rapid growth brought with it inevitable tensions. Different species, each with their own histories and grievances, struggled to find common ground. Humanity, now at the center of this fragile alliance, faced the challenge of uniting civilizations that were as diverse as the stars themselves. The coalition was a symbol of hope, but it was also a delicate construct, one that could shatter under the weight of its own ambitions. The Council, though weakened, was far from irrelevant. Behind closed doors, its leaders plotted ways to reclaim their influence. Some sought to undermine the coalition through espionage and subterfuge, while others considered alliances of convenience with species outside the coalition's reach. The galaxy, though momentarily at peace, was still a web of competing interests, and humanity's position at the center made them a target. Despite these looming challenges, the story ended with a note of cautious optimism. Humanity had proven that they were more than just survivors. They were leaders, innovators, and visionaries. Their resilience and refusal to compromise had inspired a new era in galactic history. For better or worse, humanity had changed the galaxy forever. The narrator, perhaps a human chronicler or an alien observer, closed the story with a reflection. In the vast expanse of the galaxy, it is rare for a single species to leave such an indelible mark. But humanity, with all their flaws and contradictions, has done so. They have shown that strength and compassion are not mutually exclusive, and that even in the face of overwhelming odds, it is possible to forge a path forward. Yet the stars hold many secrets, and the story of humanity is far from over. For every light they have kindled, a shadow waits in the void. The question is not whether humanity will endure, but whether they will rise to meet the challenges yet to come. As the galaxy settled into its fragile peace, the stars burned brightly, their silent vigil a reminder of the vastness and mystery that lay beyond. Humanity had taken their place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as equals. And in their strength, the galaxy found hope for a future that, though uncertain, was worth fighting for.